Belfast is a city of stories, and particularly at the end of the 1960s, it went through an incredible, tumultuous phase in its history.
You wouldn't want to be the old man out in the street. Touch my family and I'll kill you.
I and my family were part of that.
And action!
Ken has written very, very, very closely about his own life and about his own emotions and about growing up in Belfast during that time. His own family, their emotions, his emotions, and the subsequent outcome of that.
When I read the script, I was astounded by what Ken had written and what I knew, because we came from the same culture. And what he wrote was suddenly unleashed all these memories of not just of places, of locations, of people, of my people.
This is obviously such a personal story for Ken. I mean, it is his story, or certainly very close to his story. Many of the events really happened and we're pretty true to them.
Ken particularly did not want this to be a documentary about his life. This was a cinematic memory.
They're all very imaginative. They're all very generous with the way they bring their own experience to the roles, including their own experience of family.
We took a weekend in Belfast. Ken, myself, Harris, and Martin, first AD, and we walked the streets. We walked the streets of his childhood life. That was hugely beneficial and very emotional at times. We were able to, take the journey that he'd taken every day from home to school and through the park and back again. And the conversations that we had during those walks were really the sort of Ken's phenomenal brief to me about how that world was remembered by him.
The story of the film is what happens to one family inside that street as the violence intensifies, the possibility of escape rears its head, and the choice between whether you stay in a community that operates the idea that it takes a village to raise a child and where there is much happiness and much sense of who the family is, extraordinary extended family, many cousins, many aunts and uncles.
Suddenly, everyone, just normal, hardworking people, were having to make these big decisions about choosing sides and aligning themselves with something.
This underlying possibility of violence flaring up immediately and very traumatically. Will they stay? Will they go? Can they negotiate what many families find very difficult, and many people find very difficult, change?
Mommy! What the hell's here going on? Oh, Mommy! We're late in the supermarket! Where did you get that? I told you! We're late in the supermarket!
You're what? You wait right there, young man.
Why did you take that washing powder? It's biological.
No, get you not.
Everything you can! Smash it in!
No! Come on! Move! Move it!
Get the towel!
You watch your tail!
The other tail!
A lot of it! No! Put that back! Did you hear me? And if you ever do anything like that again, I will kill you! You hear me? And you, young madam, if you ever drag my son into something like this again, I will beat you black and blue until you never get home again! Do you hear me? All right! Put it back, I said!
Hey! Woman! We don't put things back! That's not the statement we're trying to make! Billy, come on! The army are coming! Come on! Out! Go on, get out! Come on, grab it! Out! Come on! Time to get out of here! Don't try anything. So you two are going to guarantee safe passage for me and my men. You try to run, I'll put a bullet in your son's head.
This is what you get.
Ah, here he comes, the Lone Ranger. I can see your kind needs a little discipline.
You let them go now.
No, I think if I do, one of them soldiers is going to take my head off.
If they don't, I will.
Over their dead bodies.
One of the things that was really possible at that time was to be just like the riot at the beginning of the film, caught up instantaneously in something that even a few seconds ago didn't seem to be happening. I remember that my breath was very, very shallow, and there was this sense that if you somehow you were in great danger if you turned around. There's this yell, get something, pick something, choose. So what? I mean, and then I started to feel mentally, I'm going, what's the least offensive thing to take? What can I do that somehow it isn't ungracious, So don't take chocolate, don't take all the selfish things. But you're being pushed and shoved all the time, and now you're realizing you're in a tide of people. You need to find a way to get out. So the only way to get it is to take something. And then I suddenly thought, what do we do? The family, something for the family. And then I thought, well, if it's the family, to get a big pack of washing powder, because surely that'll be useful.
There was only one take that we could do, because once the shop was destroyed, that was it. Like, there was no kind of resetting it.
Everyone's running into the shop, yanking things off the shelves, and this wasn't planned, but one of the rioters accidentally knocked over all of the shelves and they all toppled into each other.
But then we couldn't get out because all of the way we were supposed to go out, we couldn't, because all of the shelves were knocked over, so we sort of had to go the other way.
Folks always have a problem with change, but you better get used to it, mister. People like me run this town now. And it's people like you that bring us all down.
I see my son, my youngest son, and my wife in sort of captivity, and we have this big standoff moment in the street that is very much inspired by westerns of long ago.
The scene is about the way in which the acceleration of this kind of violence can be so intense and so swift that before you know where you are, in this case, at least through the mind of this 9-year-old, they're in a standoff, as if it were a Wild West town, as if it were a scene from a Western that we've watched this boy see during the course of the film.
That big hand move along, near in high noon. He made a vow while in state's prison.
The shock and fear of the riot was so great that the boy begins to interpret the violence that he's witnessing through his imagination, and he's seen High Noon, and in the film we had planted the scene of High Noon. And Ken and I very deliberately had chosen shots such as the high angle of Gary Cooper walking away, so that when we came to this riot scene, Ken had covered it a little bit like High Noon, so we could suddenly go, after all that sort of social realism cutting, we could now go wide and high, and Pod, the hero, returns, and High Noon begins to play.
Now that I need you by my side.
It's remarkable how when you do look at a Western film and you see those streets, how much they look like the terrace streets in Belfast. And we took all the influences and the references that we had at that point for turning something that was kinetic and energetic and handheld into something that was just this kind of locked off confrontation, much like a Western film.
I mean, that scene was really interesting because it did have that sort of heightened, standoff sense to it or feel to it. And, we were coming out and there's all of that tension and that fear, and Ma realizes, I think in that moment, just how much danger she's put her children in because of some principle that she thinks is important, which she realizes very quickly in that moment that it isn't,
It's going to be all right. I'll talk to the committee. Get this fixed. There'll be no more bother.
I caught sight of my face in that shop window when I was running down the street and dragging them poor kids behind me. And I was looking in the mirror just now at that same face. And I asked myself, what the hell am I doing? And then I was sick. like I am every morning now. I realised I don't think it really matters anymore. So tomorrow, when I'm back and I leave by looking round, I'm going to start packing.
I think it's that she realizes the peril that her children are in.
And I have to say, it's one of the most riveting performances by anyone on any film I've ever seen. I was mesmerized in the viewfinder and in tears.
I think my mother got to that point of going, what have I done? From being fearful for my safety, she's dragged us both, she pregnant and her son, back into a situation where we're at greater risk than we ever were. It was like a sort of bell being sounded for what was going to be the tipping point in our experience of Belfast, which is things had gone too far. Now the madness has taken over. Yeah, it was a hugely important, literally life-changing moment in my life, and in our film, it's the moment that dictates the way the rest of the story will be told. Internally, I think those decisions for families to move, for the migrant story to begin, the migrant narrative to dominate their lives, for that period of innocence that we might enjoy for a while in our lives to be suddenly replaced by this notion that as you navigate the rest of your time passing through this world, one really key thing that you're going to have to start dealing with is loss. In the wake of great loss comes a great desire to assert the beauty and the wonders and the joy of life.
I don't think you can watch this film without thinking about your own family. It's not a very easy thing to do, you know, to create something so universal by being very specific, but he did it beautifully.
I mean, this is Ken's family.
So if Belfast does anything, I hope it puts a smile on the face of people so that they can believe that what I've just described is possible rather than some kind of dream. In stories like this, maybe we understand that we are not alone when we look at these reflections of other lives. I think to be childlike in the way we look at life is sometimes very valuable. It needn't make us sentimental or naive. Sometimes it can just make us happy.